All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan. Fox Dragon of Foxhole. Season 11, Episode 6, number 326 overall, coming to you live. Well, not live, but Eagles Nest 2, Studio B on a super Saturday afternoon as we see Caitlin Clark off to the right playing the Chicago Sky. The Red Hot Red Sox on the other monitor in the Metroplex. Good to be here as always. As we always like to say, like and subscribe to FTI and FX Media's YouTube channel. We have some information up there throughout the show as far as letting you know. Ooh, man. You want to be on the show? We'd love to have you as a guest. FTINFX@gmail.com. Or call the hotline 541-525-0896. Hotline's kind of lonely, so give us a jingle sometime and just leave a message. Bust our chops even. Always a shout out to the folks that provide wonderful, well, they don't provide, but they make good gear that I select and use, and we're getting better at using all this stuff. So shout out to all of you folks, especially to all the folks who are slowly joining the Foxhole experience. Welcome, thank you. Tell your friends, please come back. Always like and subscribe. All right, let's get with the pitter patter. Let's do it. Let's rock it. Open FaceTime. Where are we going here? Well, it's football season. We had the Hall of Fame game, and more on that as the show goes on. But the week leading up to it, because it's pretty much, even though people poo-paw it, it basically is the beginning of the turn of the year. When you have football, a game, whether you care about preseason or exhibition football, pointless. It means that football has landed. And with that being said, of course, A-Raj. That's right, Aaron Rodgers. Right on cue. For somebody who has a disdain for everyone, he sure do be liking that spotlight. You know what I'm saying? Oh man. He goes on McAfee to take shots at ESPN. Goes after Fauci, which it's open season on him, after he did his Mark Furman. Hell, but people tried to hold Fauci's ass in contempt. But that's a story for somebody else. This is more about A-Raj. And you wonder what kind of personality he's going to be in the post-life. I know I've brought this up before, but now that we know this is the last dance, and he's more cantankerous than ever. I guess it's good that he made up with his family, supposedly, so good there. He somehow has managed to keep his, better half out of the public eye, which is a good thing. But yeah, take going, at ESPN for the way they kind of shied away from the whole Vrabes Rossini thing. Has a good point there. Can't say he's lying. I'm not getting into the whole COVID stuff. That stuff kicked my ass, so I stay out of these debates. Y'all can argue amongst yourselves. I know how serious that was, at least for me. That said, when it comes to Rossini and Vrabes, he's got a great point there in terms of the integrity questions that ESPN and most of the major media outlets skirting. He's going to be a heck of a personality. Not sure what he's going to, It's good to see that Tomlin got favorable reviews in night one. Maria Taylor, not so much. A lot of folks already coming at the slings and arrows with her as far as what we got to deal with her in the pregame. Hey, y'all have to understand there's going to be some kind of eye candy. Even if they don't bring a lot to the actual broadcast, and I don't know. I mean, I'll agree with folks who say that Carissa T actually does well on Amazon, but Would we, as football fans, really miss her if she wasn't part of it? Probably not. But like Maria Taylor is just like, God. Like I said, this isn't coming off as being sexist or chauvinist. But when, it is framed in a way like, hey, this is eye candy. And hey, Melissa Stark, you're looking really good for your age, by the way. I'm just saying, you're looking pretty tight. I was like very impressed. So no, I mean, like I said, it's fine with me, but it kind of cracks me up when you sit there and you listen to the content creators who just get tired of what they call the feminization, of the sports we watch. Yeah, one way or the other, you might as well have some eye candy the way they figure. Draw a few casuals in. They know we're going to be here regardless of who they roll out there. You might as well have somebody that's at least good on the eyes as opposed to the jockocracy, which you can only have so much of that. Fair? Isn't that funny that I was wondering when they were lobbying or lobbing the possibility that Steve Smith would replace RC as far as the insider. But instead, they're going to, I guess, kick Jason McCourty, from the Pats. Good choice. We kind of like that stuff. Um, yeah, Ryan Clark. Boy, how quickly, once you get pushed out the chute, how irrelevant and insignificant you become. Now, I imagine once the games start, his platform will get a lot of traction, but I think his race antics and then crying like a bee, it turned a lot of people off. And so there's not a lot of people, rallying to his defense. The Stephen A's and Jamel Hills, they've moved on to the other crazy circus that seems to be dominating the sports sphere right now. Yeah, Ryan, you're getting squeezed along the margins. It is kind of interesting. This is when I made this bullet point. It wasn't completely flushed out yet, and this is basically the NFL trying to sort of renegotiate media rights deals before I think the deal ends in 29 or 30, and now CBS, because of its ongoing issues with the whole merger with Warner's, that's gone on hold. And Fox has came out and said, we're not sure we want to renegotiate. We may want this thing to run out and see where we are. And I think that is probably a smart move right now. Now, you know how I always say the NFL has this like Teflon quality about it. Well, there is a saturation point. We talked about this recently on the platforms. We're just getting so OD'd with, sports viewing, especially once we get closer to the fun part of the year as far as, the action is concerned. And, yeah, I think it is kind of a wait and see. The valuations have gone, through the stratosphere. Is there going to be some leveling, or are they going to continue to go beyond the stratosphere? Yeah. I mean, it's 2026, so I don't think we're going to last till 2030 for a lot of these folks. I think right now it's going to probably be a year to year thing in terms of, okay, do we renegotiate now or do we just wait? Yeah, this is going to be an interesting year in terms of football, as far as so much of it and what we really want to see. The NFL trying to monopolize every day of the week. Obviously, college spread out throughout the week. We'll see about our football appetite. I mean, we know it's the Colossus and the end-all be-all. Sorry for everybody else out there who complain about how much they don't like American football. It's a Colossus. You don't have to watch it. Keep complaining. I mentioned this the other day. Still can't get over. Right. We're getting tired of these prediction markets. I think it's gone way too far. Maybe I'm sounding like a fuddy duddy, get off my lawn kind of guy with this. But when I think you're doing prediction markets of where the next forest fire may be, I said, man, this is a pretty insane world we're in. Especially, with our man, friend of the show, who was on the scene early talking about fighting fires. My man, Mr. Jason Wong, out there, keeping us safe. We don't need to give people incentives so they can try to get a big bag of cash on a prediction. This is going to be another interesting. There's so much stuff going on in the courts right now. So, anyway. What else do we have here? What was I watching? We'll go do a little pop culture, lighten it up here before we get into the real good stuff. But I was like watching this. It was a foodie show. It's been a while. One of my good friend, who I used to live with, passed away about 6 years ago. I kind of stopped watching these food shows. That's something we used to do together. And she's a good lady. And anyhow, the thing about it is, I was watching one of these shows on the Food Network, I think it was, and they were at this place where they had gourmet hot dogs. And they were $100 gourmet hot dogs. Now, it's one thing to pay $8 or $10 for a dog at the park. But what are you putting on a hot dog that costs the C note? The Foxhole would like to know. If you've ever had one of these, let us know, because come on, man. This is really ridiculous. Also, another interesting, sad kind of right now. There's somebody who's a Californian and tends to keep an eye on what's happening in the Golden State, popular culture and everything else. I'm sure you all know about the world famous, bald eagles that reside right outside of Big Bear, Jackie and Shadow, and how Jackie has been in the ICU in the care of the folks at the Ojai Raptor Center, I believe it is. Kind of a bummer to hear Jackie's taking a turn from the worse again. Like, who knows if she's ever going to get back to Shadow, which is totally breaking the internet's heart. You see people with posts, oh, I haven't slept all week since Jackie. They've got to save her. And, it's been an interesting story with all the kids that they've had over time. But yeah, so send some good vibes to Jackie's way, so hopefully her and Shadow can hang out again. What is this stuff that the MySpace crew is trying to get the band back together and fire that back up? That'll be interesting from a nostalgia point of view. Maybe we can get back to seeing people's posts in chronological order as opposed to the jumble that is Zuckerberg's world. Don't even get me started there. I'm trying to sell some stuff on Marketplace, and you fill in a support ticket and what? It's been 4 days and they still haven't responded back to me. Hey, MySpace, you can provide an alternative where we can actually see what our people are doing and not have it based on the algorithm. You might get some traction there. Okay, folks, that's Open Face. When we come back, we will take flight with the 43K view. See you momentarily. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. All right. I know it probably was a long Friday night. It definitely was for me because I was having a few drinks with the crew up here, along with our good friend SJ of SJ Gets Down. Get ready to make some new content with her, hopefully, this weekend. So that's always fun. Anyway, in spite of that, we're going to try to rally the homies and homettes. Hopefully, they've had themselves a hearty brunch, maybe a Bloody Mary to take on the road, as we call our Uber. It's going to sprint us down to the Eugene airport, even though there's many people on the roads for a Saturday. What y'all doing in your car so early, I don't know. Anyhow, we get to the Eugene airport, exit our Uber, do the Texas two-step through TSA, smiling and fist bumping all along the way until we get to our tarmac, where our shimmering Gulfstream G650 awaits us for what? To take the high view over the campuses of America as we reside at our cruising altitude of 43,000 feet. Okay, what is going on high above campus? Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Another whack ball judge has made a ruling where everything is uncertain. The gist of it, some judge, not sure what our motivation is. And I talked about this a little bit probably talked about it a lot on Aftershocks the other day. No, it was Aftershocks like 56, I believe. Point being, as well, we have a better idea of what is happening. Because everybody is rushing to make their play. Guys who didn't get drafted. I mean, the judge did prescribe in this because, like I said, let me back up here, not get ahead of myself, just in case you didn't see the Aftershocks. But this is basically giving everybody in the class of 2022 an additional year. Because it's not fair to punish them, which is can go on endlessly, unfortunately. The NCAA is going to counter. And in the meanwhile, as you can imagine, it's like Oklahoma in 1907 when they opened it up to the settlers, when they opened Indian country, and everybody's rushing to get what they could. And that's what's happening now in the college landscape. And, you know, it's funny because you listen to Coach Dan Hurley, who's never afraid to speak his mind on all sorts of subjects. I think he said this was pure insanity, especially the judge ruling this late in the summer. Because, right, you're how many days out from your first game? As you know, a lot of these teams are getting ready to go on scrimmages. You know, their trips to Europe or wherever, Canada, play some teams. And now you're bringing this instability because there's all these mercenaries where, hey, if you're shameless in that Texas Tech kind of way, hey, we might find a judge that's going to roll with us. So, and on top of this nonsense, you have the college sports bill, which I thought was going to be put to a vote. It was discussion. It's tabled for next month because there's so many people like the AFL-CIO, the Black Caucus, and some other folks that are against it, and they're trying to shoehorn in all kinds of BS that doesn't need to be there. So we're going to take a minute or two to sort that out, but it's scheduled for a vote next month, which I say is 2 months too late to avoid the chaos that we have going right now. So I'm not as optimistic as I probably could be as far as this goes. Why would I not be optimistic? Well, when it's a crap fest, it smells like a crap fest. It probably is a crap fest that's incoming when it comes to getting this college sports bill over the finish line. So we'll see. To the Senate in September. You know, we'll have our eyes on that the whole way. Pac-12 and Mountain West agree to terms with their ongoing money battles and who should get what because you went here and you did this. Good to come to terms, put that in a sack, throw it in the storage room, and now let's carve a future for both conferences. Y'all are going to be in a those who can survive, y'all are going to be in a super conference at some point anyway. But in the here and now, you don't have that lingering nonsense going on. Some adults in the room. Imagine that in this crazy 2026. Over in Chapel Hill, Mr. Lombardi. No, not the great Vincent Lombardi. Vincent Lombardo is what I called it when I first became a Redskins fan in '69, his 1 year there. But yeah, no, Michael, that Lombardo. Yeah, he's pushing back on all these folks who say he's cooked. The typical party line. Looking forward to the day when he will be exonerated. That's a witch hunt. Which, in this day and age, and the way everything seems to be a screwball, who knows? He might end up getting some big money and that whole defamation kind of thing. You know, the kids down there in Mississippi got the guy that won those defamation cases for the president, so you never know. Just saying. Okay, some good stuff here. Even though we gotta wait till 2030 for it to happen, Notre Dame and USC, they're renewing their series at that point. At least it's going to start off with being 4 games. Better than none. Of course, the purists could never take the small bone or victory they get.
No, it's going to be in September. It's really not the USC Notre Dame game.
It's like, yeah. You got to start with something. Because, you know what? It's like Cheese Wagstaff and that epic scene when he gets smoked by Slim Charles. But as he says, we ain't back in the day. And so you're going to have to enjoy whatever you get. At least schools like Notre Dame and USC and Oregon State, they're getting it back on the schedule and trying to do it in a way that works with their bigger ambitions. Like I said, at least they're trying to preserve tradition. Maybe not the way you like it, but then again, they've been breaking the wall down for quite some time, even before the pandemic, when you think about it. I mean, look at how they basically cannibalized rivalry weekend. Yeah, right. Cal and Stanford playing in the early fall. So yeah, we've already crossed the Rubicon as far as the old days and how things used to be. You know, I need to do a deeper dive on this whole thing with Akron. You know, as a way to sell their, I guess, high-priced suites. You know, their big-wig donors to get them happy and make them feel a part of the process. I guess they've got a whole thing where you can, you pay the ducats that you can be part of, you get a headset and you can be part of calling the first series. And obviously, like people are like I said, football being a colossus and our thirst for the gridiron. I guess folks open their checkbook and books in droves. I mean, you mean I get to be the headset? I get to be like Tom Brady sitting up there with the Raider coordinators? Yeah, we can't wait to see what a fiasco this is probably going to be. But give Akron some flowers for being very innovative. Right? I mean, you gotta say that's, okay. And the suites are sold out, which is the intention. More on that when we get to the season. You can guarantee that. going back, I was just mentioning Cal a second ago. I find this funny. This is kind of a sign about how long Cal has been in the Mojave of college football, as far as the Mojave Desert. So when they hosted college game day, so this was I think 2 years ago. It's like the first time ever. They didn't get the memo that hey, schools usually don't charge. It's like free. It's one of the biggest free promos you can get when ESPN slash ABC Disney come to your town, come to your campus, and you charge them $4,500 to set up. Yeah, I guess somebody probably went to Cal and, sent them a memo like going, you do realize, hey, you find weird stuff, you hear weird stuff every week. And that was one of those. I was just like, yeah, go figure. Wow. Yeah, I know we're cooking right now. This is one that's taken me aback too. And I got to do a deeper dive as far as this goes. In the insanity that this world is, when I think about the whole thing with this Nolan Wells case and, folks trying to put things in the lens, or they're trying to put everything in the lens of 1955, Mississippi, or 1964. And I'm like, that at this point, this is 60, 70 years ago. And we're fighting this stuff creeping into college football. I know this. But apparently there's a lot of contention going back. So this is, for example, 1960, where I think Missouri or somebody passed a resolution to see if they can be installed as the champions of 1960. I gotta do a rewind as far as what went down in the 1960 season. I know that Missouri had lost their bowl game, but are we really trying to go back and litigate championships? I mean, you do realize that anybody that was a participant, they are very long in the tooth right now. They were in their late teens and early 20s. That was 66 years ago. Why are we even bothering? Stop this nonsense. Okay, here's another dose of nonsense for you. It's okay. Boston College, their new coach, Luke Murray. This guy sounds like he's real fun to be at parties. So he gets to campus and basically kind of cuts himself off with anything to the past. And that extended as far as their basketball broadcast team, who reached out many times over to connect with them, and he just brushed them off and finally made the school fire their two announcers. I can't think of their names, but fire them late in the summer where, finding another gig at what they do is not necessarily the easiest. And I'm thinking, wow, you are that kind of guy that kind of comes in. And you're so worried about that kind of detail and that, okay, we want to get rid of any ties. I mean, obviously I got to look at what Boston College's record has been, but you just don't want any connection to the residues, as my friends would call it, right? The residuals, but the residues, you don't want any part of that. Damn, man, you a hard mofo, Mr. Luke Murray. Dang. This is no, kick their boo-boos to the curb. Man. And this is something that I really, we'll close and move on to something else. This is something that I really kind of find disturbing. When I see Pierce and Orange Coast College, these are junior colleges, dropping football, which obviously the world now, where that doesn't even count against your 4 years, but a great proving ground where we get the likes of Coach JB's and countless others. I know where I grew up, Merced College. God bless you. I did a few years there. They still have a football program, but to see Pierce and OCC, which used to be a juggernaut, get rid of football, that is very concerning. You know, the folks who late bloomers don't have the grades, you know, less options for them. Yeah, this is an interesting, what do we call it? The sports ecosphere or the football ecosphere that we're traveling down, especially at the college levels. I mean, I already know because, like I've said many times about my alma mater getting rid of football way back in 2001 and a whole pattern of the state schools doing it. But to see the junior colleges do that in California, that is very disheartening. All right, folks, we're going to land the plane, get the homies and homettes back to where they belong. When we return, we're going to talk about something interesting. We'll see you momentarily. Hey, righty. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan, coming to you from Eagle's Nest 2 Studio B. Indiana Fever trailing by 3. But it looks like Aaliyah Boston's off to a hot start. We'll get to the crazies. No, I can't say the queens of the court anymore. We're going to call this the crazies of the court. But more on that down the road. Let's get to one of our favorite segments of the Foxtrotting and the Foxhole podcast. Something you should probably know. Or things that happened this past week in the world of sports you might want to know. Or possibly care about. Wow. This is something here, man. I gotta say. You know, I've definitely had my comedy, and I think I mentioned this the other day on Aftershocks. We'll get a little more detail. Liv getting thrown a life preserver. How about that? Yeah. Somebody willing to fund this crap fest. I don't know how long down the road, but wow. I'm still blown away that Liv found this sugar daddy at the 11th hour. I know, I talked about it the other day, but it just bears repeating because now I guess, you know, right, happy days are here again. The grand jewel, as they call it, the Liv finale, that's probably going to happen now. It's like, hey, come on, man, we might as well. We still going to get paid. I just wonder what the funding structure is going to look like. Because, you know, obviously, y'all were just sitting back taking those big bags of cash, just sitting there giggling all along the way. As I've said all along, you know, forget the whole sports washing conversation. It's all about dollars and cents in this world. And if you can have 4 or 5 more bags of cash, this is how some people see it. If you got integrity, I got no problem with that either. You know, I obviously find that way more laudable. But hey, I ain't no dummy. I'm like that guy Randy Phillips in the U part too. You talk about cash money. I like cash money, so I have no problems with these folks, you know, opting for the big bags of cash. I just want to know what those big bags of cash are going to look like in this iteration of the Live Tour. Stay tuned on that one. Speaking of, that was pretty cool last week seeing Michael, what is it, Thorbjornsen win his first tournament on the tour, winning the final Rocket Classic, which is kind of crazy because Weren't they talking on the broadcast about, all the money that they put in renovating it? And I'm like going, okay, and this is the last? I mean, the PGA abandoning the Motor City? Hopefully that's temporary, because that would kind of suck. Okay. Over across the pond. I know I'm going to butcher this. What is it? It's it. Chilewa Kuwaki wins the British Women's Open on a second playoff hole. Give her the atomic elbow. Good job. Okay. And this is an ongoing conversation that we'll get more into as we start talking about basketball. But it is interesting as far as tennis goes. Our girl Miss Sabalenka coming out along with Martina. I think I probably mentioned this too the other day. Now thinking about it, but it's just interesting. This whole trans thing, and it's getting weird. I'll save that for later, but it's weird. And I still don't get it, though. These women, after they're competing and or they're getting ready to start a tournament, and this is the first damn question you whack balls in the woke sports media have to bring up. Man. Well, yeah, and when it comes to, I'm not going there. I'm just gonna, leave that for the other incendiary folks. We got better things to get in trouble about, I would think. But yeah. Okay. Well, F1, this is getting interesting. Because you know how they usually end their season in Abu Dhabi. They do their end in the Middle East. Well, the war's still going on. Probably will be going on for a while. Which means Austin might be the benefactor. Nothing's in stone yet, but why not move it to the States? The cars are already here pretty much from the Thanksgiving window with the Vegas Grand Prix. That'd be pretty cool. Stay tuned as far as that one's concerned. Hop on the Zamboni. Take a quick ride on the ice rink of life. Real quick ride. A lot going in this segment still. But, looking at the futures and looking at the odds for the current favorites, it's kind of interesting. Kind of the usual suspects. The Avs are like the favorite, followed by the Canes. Yeah, go figure. And then Vegas Golden Knights. So, same as it ever was, huh? This is disturbing what's happened here in the past week. And this is two different sports, but on one, you have, upcoming Aussie track phenom. Her name was Natasha Ward. She passed away unexpectedly at 21. I was just like, what the hell? Especially a track star. Not sure what's going on there. And you also have UFC fighter Alan Nascimento passing away at 34. So 21 and 34 for folks who are really fit, compete at the highest levels, dropping dead. You conspiracy theorists, no. You've got your whole narratives. You've got your clicks and what goes to fall here. I just try to keep it straight and real here. And I still think this is pretty odd. Obviously, and within, the same week of each other, two good athletes right on the wrong side of 35. Not that the other side of 35 you should be dying either. But gee whiz, that is spooky. Hope we get to the bottom of that. All right. Speaking of UFC, so Connor peeps his head out of the wormhole wherever he's crawling in. Obviously, he says the rehab is going well. For all you folks who are drunk on a haterade, you all need to SDFU is what he's telling you. Because he's going to be back and he's going to shut you all up.
Well, Connor.
Talk is cheap. Show me something. You kept us. You kept yanking our chain for years, and then you show up and have to tap out in the first round. Of course, we're drinking the Haterade, and we're drunk as a skunk on it. British Petroleum, Connor. Okay, this is another one of those. Are we believing it? In that world, Mr. Brock Lesnar at 49, calling it a career. Remember way back when he tried out for the Vikings? Yeah, it's been an interesting road for Mr. Brock. But yes, he apparently says this is it. I don't know. How many times has The Rock and John Cena said it was it, and the next thing I know, they're back in whatever form of combat that they do? Okay. And did you see the world? What is it? The World Professional Baseball League. This is the modern version of a league of their own. The Rockford Peaches, y'all. Postmodern style. But boy, did it get off to a really odd beginning. That whole national anthem with, was it Martha Reeves? Martha Reeves of the Vandellas, and I don't know who the other two chicks were, but there's been some bad national anthems, and I'm not going to say this was the worst, but it just was, wow, this is how you're kicking this league off. Yeah, going to be interesting ride with that one. All right, folks, we're cooking along. We're going to go pitch side when we come back, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling like Kavicha Kravitskalia on a Super Saturday. Got to watch a little Kavicha this morning. PSG and Manchester United in a friendly in Sweden that ended up 1-1 tie. Obviously, both squads still getting people back from the World Cup, integrating them back, folks with the Knicks and all that kind of stuff. It was cool to see the red, white, and blues again. They got the Super Cup coming up here real quick. So interesting there. I mentioned the other day about Larry Bird becoming commissioner. Yeah, right. Still haven't had a really good, I don't know, I haven't really gotten a good synopsis from somebody who really knows what to expect. Right, I'm going to let that marinate a little bit more. Obviously, I can't emphasize enough the road ahead for MLS. There's a lot of potential there. In spite of the people who want to, be the dog and pee all over the league's leg. And the idea that they're going to take the restraints off. Yeah, interesting times. Wow. Still not sure what's going to go on with I think he's going to survive, Mr. Infantino. The whole thing of trying to sell the World Cup off. Obviously pissed a lot of people off, but I got the feeling the right bribes and conversations, because I'm sure if you kick him to the curb, right, kind of like what Burrell said in The Wire, when they were getting ready when Clarence Royce and company were getting ready to toss him out with the milk and bath water. He says, "Hey, if I start talking, I can talk all kinds of it when it comes to the body's buried out in Lake Mead. So, so if he survives, I'm gonna guess it's gonna be more about that in terms of all the shenanigans that you've seen from FIFA on his watch. Yeah, I know the folks who are drunk on the haterade ain't gonna like that. But did you think it was gonna be any other way? When it wasn't gonna be? Totally. So, what the UEFA is going to increase the threshold for yellows. It used to be 3, now it's going to be 4 as far as suspensions are concerned. Makes sense. No need to penalize folks as far as the high stakes when it comes to UEFA Champions League. We cool with it. Let's see here. A lot of movement, obviously. This being in the transfer window, kind of speaking of MLS with a missed opportunity, Mo Salah ain't going to Kansas City to get that wonderful barbecue and hang out with Patrick Mahomes. Instead, he's going to Turkey. Wow. Said the folks over there just said, "I got the bags of cash, Mo. Come on over." Missed opportunity for the MLS. I see Mr. Lozano is going from San Diego to the LA Galaxy. That's a good signing for those folks over there in Carson. After the whole flirtation with Arsenal, Mr. Vinny is staying in Madrid. Great team they're building. They got Diomande on the plane. That's all happening. Great window in year 1 of the chosen one. Mr. Jose running things for Los Blancos. Stay tuned there. Yeah, we know their guy. The fact that he hasn't had a good night of sleep for the pretty much the last 2 years, because I know every night he goes to bed knowing PSG is winning Champions League and his beloved Real Madrid not winning any trophies. Yeah, he hasn't had a good night of sleep in a long while. This we know. Speaking of PSG, I cracks me up every time when it comes to their fans. Now I always talk about fan bases, especially ones being insufferable at times. And I've said that when it comes to like my Commanders, my Lakers. Unfortunately, it's like kind of a recurring theme with me. Is I'm like, well, yeah, Ken, all of your teams. I don't find Dodger Nation to be that insufferable. You might hate us because our team just spends lots of money, but I think some of the other teams I have, their fan bases, and let me tell you, PSG's, not the plastic fans, but the folks who really understand the badge. And if they could, they'd take a bullet for it. And every window, how panicky they get when it comes to Nasser and Mr. Campos. And then out of nowhere, right, they wave their magic wand and everything starts to fall in place. And I know that they've made a few key signings as well, like Real Madrid. But it's always like, will you enjoy your summer, have a glass of wine, hold hands with your lady, and go walk, as opposed to worrying about what's going on with PSG in the transfer window. Sell this, or why are we nickel and diming? It's not your money. Don't give yourself an ulcer. There's a lot of insufferable fans when it comes to the top 5 European leagues, right? Take your pick. But I tell you, as much as I love my people, they could be a bit obnoxious especially during the transfer windows. Now, I admit, a lot of this is the PTSD of chasing the Holy Grail and always falling short and becoming right? The target of every hater in the soccer sphere or the football proper sphere. I get that part of it, but it's something. But now that you have a seat at the table, will you friggin' act like it? Jeez. What else do we have here? Mr. Rashford returns to United. He was on loan. We're not sure where, if he's staying there or if he's going somewhere else. We'll keep an eye on that. Miami says the KDB, Kevin De Bruyne rumors, they just untrue, honey. A lot of cool stuff going on in the League's Cup. The Timbers continue to rise, put up another 5 spot. Was that on Puebla? LAFC beating Chivas in penalty shootout. Never seen BMO taken over like that by opposing. But that's the problem here, right? You know the obvious connections with Chivas and yeah, there's a lot of LAFC fans who are awesome Chivas fans, who had to show their true loyalty. Great match. Nobody did anything stupid. Everybody, had a great time tailgating with one another and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I heard positive stuff. I just like, as I've been telling people, it's good to see some of these fan bases grow up. Right, I haven't seen anything ridiculous in El Trafico in quite some time. Nothing that goes viral. And that's a good thing. Yeah, it was cool. That I haven't really anything weird between the Liga MX and MLS crowds. Everybody seems to be having a good time in the lot in the stands, the way it should be. Keep it up, people. Kiki. What else do we got here? Yeah. Speaking of San Diego, or maybe I didn't mention them. Yeah, that was an interesting match with Club America. Yeah. All right. Wow. Said CR7, tying the knot. Great, Fabrizio. You had to tell us about that. Oh, man. I had a joke, but I'm just going to be nice. I'll leave you with this one. Major shout out. USL2 crowned its champion. USL2 always dear to our hearts here in Eugene, with the dearly departed Lane United Football Club, soon to be Sporting Cascades FC. Can't see it over here. It's out of frame. But props to the Vermont Green, who I've always been a big admirer of. They hoist the trophy and they are champions for the USL2 for 2026. Rongamboyo. Yeah. So, okay. I think we've got this covered as far as what's happening pitch side. When we come back, we'll talk a little hippie mixed with a little baseball because it'll be the night full of diamonds. See you momentarily. Ha! Tried to run and get one of these. Too early for the adult bevs. Getting my energy drink on that I could get back before the trailer ran. Not as fast as we used to be. But hey, it's good to get that blood rushing to the head. All right, where are we going here for Nightfall Diamonds? We got to take a ride on the hippie bus first. That's what we do because Dark Star crashes. Mirror shatters. Had Dark Star Orchestra in town here. What was that? Wednesday night. Was kind of supposed to be there. Didn't quite work out that way. So we're going to have to ask our friend, fellow Cascade Ace, Candace, to see what that was all about. Yeah, I got caught up as like working some technical stuff out with all of this. Woo, man. Let's see here. What have we got on tap besides that? Obviously, we're wrapping up the days between. Been a lot of stuff all over the place, right? Fish has parked the barn after that successful run. Now we're awaiting Dick's. They did announce some more shows in the fall down south, so that's gonna cook. Well, I mean, Billy Strings is being Billy Strings, and Goose is being Goose. Apparently, J-Rad is coming here to Eugene next Friday. I'm either going to be in the show or in the lot somewhere, so we'll see how that goes. As far as the drops go this week, oh man, what did we get? Like, was it 88 again? Yeah, I think it's like more 80s. And even the road trips reissues, that was like 327.88. After wetting our beaks a little bit with some 70s love. Hey, it's like we're just gonna get the hard pressed good stuff from the the whole dad era. So I get it. It's like really easy in terms of putting out digital content as opposed to having to like make sure some of this stuff in the way backs. It's like, hey, we might be able to make some real money up off of this in a box set, Ken. So hold on. Yes, we are definitely looking forward to the 85 box set. Man, let's see what else we got going on. You got the Jerry Experience, which is coming. This is like when he was married to Menasha. Now her daughter, what's her name? Keelan, I believe it is. They're old enough to like spin their own thing. Like Rosie O'Prill says about Hillary Clinton. She was able to like spin her own thing and turn it into gold. This appears to be like this is going to be a big exhibit that's going to travel. Yeah. Bands, all kinds of stuff. Hopefully it's good and it's not fondue. Time will tell. Boy, it does get weirder and weirder though. And we'll go talk about a little Humphreys McGee. This whole thing of Jake, it's one thing to get run from the band. Even though people say, hey, it was a mutual thing. That ain't what I'm hearing, sugar. But we don't want to get ourselves in trouble for slander. But we know this is verifiable. Jake being a racist. Was it on Instagram? Yeah, on his Instagram page. Being that dude. And having to walk it back and apologize. This has not been a good year for you, Mr. Senator, and it keeps getting darker. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you were just spouting off, and you ain't really that much of a D-bag, but maybe you are. The more we find out, the less we like. Come on, Jake, be better. All right, let's park the hippie bus. Let's go get the stitches and the cowhide. And let's go throw a little screwballs. Baseball time, not fall of diamonds, because the dark star crashes and the mirror shattered. Boy, I tell you, the Red Sox, man. Anyhow, we'll get to that one as who's hot. In the meanwhile, we love Brian Cashman. I brought this up the other day, about New York kind of like being pretty hollow in terms of the capital of baseball grabbing our attention. Right? Going back to Cheese Wagstaff. We back in the day. And that certainly is the case. To the point where it's not as bad as Connor, but I come to feel, the micro version of Brian Cashman and the New York media always throwing these like little chiclets out. Well, maybe Judge is coming back. No, he is coming back. Or maybe like Caitlin Clark a few years ago, where, hey, to keep believing we're going to put that colonel out there. And I'm thinking, okay, if he's coming back, well, we're already 1 week down in August. And the way the Red Sox were playing, yes, indeed. Scuba to LA and the Dodgers lost 7. What did I tell you, folks, even before that happened, about the Dodgers getting a little too comfortable and now all of a sudden they're in a funk? A real bad funk. Now, they played some good teams, but they're going to have to play good teams when it matters. They've lost 7 in a frigging row. The two-time defending champs. There are some other interesting moves. I think I brought that up the other day. With the Giants having their fire sale. Sitting, how many times has that cat Araz won the batting title? That's a good pickup with the Phils. And folks in Baltimore still drinking their beers. What do you mean? At least Beantown. Yeah, I mean, fan favorite, like I was saying the other day. It's definitely a shocker there. I think it was interesting. It was hot right now. I mean, right, the Padres at one point won 8 out of 10. That Dodger lead that was so big, what is it now? 8.5, maybe 7.5 after last night. I haven't had a chance to look at the standings yet. Okay. Boston, once again. 9 out of 10, I believe. Get ready. They're already up 2-0 right now over here on FS1. So, yeah, last time I looked, they were like a game and a half behind the Yankees. I mean, remember how bad they were? And I feel good that I kind of saw this coming. But, yeah, this is Red Sox team, man. They bringing it. Yeah, because like I said, yeah. In fact, it is a half a game right now. Looking at the standings on the famous scoreboard of the Green Monster. Where are we at? Bottom, we're at Fenway, obviously. So bottom second. They bringing it. How about the Braves? They've won 8 out of their last 10, which means they're 8.5 game lead in the NL East. Diamond in the back. In your badass Cadillac. No, bro. I had an Electra 225. Okay. But not so hot. I obviously talked about the Dodgers, who I think 7 in a row, not a stinky diaper. The White Sox, who have been such a great story, you have to wonder about them, even though they've been 4-6 in their last 10. I think they've lost 3 or 4 in a row. They still have a 3-game lead. We just wonder if they truly wilt in the August heat, or it's just a hiccup and they get back to keep a way to hold off, the Guardians and those folks who are clipping at their heels. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the A's, okay, they're watching the A's and the Red Sox right now. I've been talking about the clamshell rising from the valley floor, but things are not going so well. They just fired their GM, right? David Frost. He's been part of the organization, the past 3 decades, almost 3 decades. I think 27 years. I think he's been 12 or 13 years in the GM post. Took the job from Billy Beane. They're 1-9 in their last 10. And we're about to make that 1-10 in their last 11 because they ain't winning this freaking game today. And so, while the future and down the road looks pretty good and interesting, what's happening today? Stinky diaper. And Fisher just said, okay, something ain't working here. So pull the plug on the GM. Mutual my butt. Another interesting blast from the past, even though I keep saying we back in the day, but this is recent enough. Trevor Bauer, we hear from that guy. Boy, he regrets ever signing with the Dodgers because he feels like the Dodgers did him dirty and led to him being blackballed. I can't blame the guy. But then again, you getting the freaky deaky with some weirdo. You brought up brothers on yourself. You were kind of exonerated, but that's the problem. It still was like, ew, I didn't take a shower, and you kind of got on the wrong side of the powers that be, right? The baseball's moral council, and you stay on the outside looking in. So, yeah, maybe with another club, it doesn't happen that way. But, the goody two shot Dodgers, they probably did put your you-know-what in the wind. And he's bitter. I don't blame him, though. But, yeah, you did bring it on yourself. How about, all the chaos with, I've been bringing up San Francisco. I brought up the whole San Francisco A's thing, I think, on Aftershocks. And it's just like so much has gone on this year with the Giants. Their long-term relationship with KNBR, the flagship station for many moons, that's on the rocks. So much to the point where Mike Kruk, he's walking away. Of course, it's been a long year for him, inserting himself in the whole thing with the baseball players and Pride Night and all that stuff. But yeah, this has just been, I think, one of those years. If you like the orange and black, you can't wait for this year to end and maybe do a reset and pray for a rosier 2027. All right, folks, that's what's happening on the diamond and on the bus. When we return, we will do some hoops, talk some association live. See you momentarily. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Herlin here. Ice cold chilling like a Vicha Karvachkelia on a superlative Saturday sunny afternoon. As we see Stephanie White getting all up in her team's kitchen right now. Okay, let's go to the hardwood, shall we? Like and subscribe to FTI and FX's media YouTube channel. Help us out whenever you can, as you can see. Yeah, help a brother out. We really could use the engagement. Definitely appreciate the folks who joined the Foxhole experience, as I said in the opener. Okay, the NBA beat coming at you. Man, this whole thing that happened to the kid from the Grizzlies, Brandon Clark. Boy, this is a cautionary tale for all you folks out there that, like to dabble or get into the abyss. Hey, I'm no saint here. I've done my share of all sorts of things, so I'm not here being all high and mighty. As you see a lot of people when it comes to, the limb bias kind of tragedies. And this is kind of along those lines because this guy apparently is, it's a mixture of heroin and cocaine. I'm guessing you were speedballing. And we all know, like I said in the last segment, I always talk about the hippie stuff that took out our man Brent. Take out a lot of people. And it's just like, bro, we're still losing people from doing that. 2026. Don't you mofos ever learn? Anyways, yeah, that's a sad. Okay. Let's move on to something I don't know. Hopefully, this is a positive thing. It seems that the is it Multnomah County? I forget who it is, but somebody, they've kind of agreed to, their share of the funding as far as putting on the table for the motor innovations, putting their money on the table, making it harder for this guy, Mr. TD, to, hijack the Blazers out of Portland. I mean, if they can, you know, how do I say this? If they can, fulfill their end of the bargain as far as making sure the motor's renovated and modernized to be a viable arena over the next quarter century or whatever the shelf life is going to be. You don't have any reason to be a dirtbag and take the Blazers out of Portland. Now, we all know, living in this state at least, we know how things can be hard to get done in the workforce, just the way the state is. That's not a knock on it, but that's just the way it is, but yeah, I like to see that the folks, the powers that be as far as the Rose City is concerned, they've rolled up their sleeves and they're just like, okay, we're going to get this worked out. Because as we all know, the Blazers leaving, this would be just such a calamity of errors, as they say. Comedy of errors, calamity of errors. Daktronics and Kawhi. Boy, this is getting ugly. Fucking Pablo Torre, the pit bull, just never letting go. Digging deeper. Being Mr. Woodward and what's the other guy? Yeah, those guys. But yeah, I have to think, it appears he had a deal with Daktronics, which would allow the Clippers to circumvent the salary cap. So the more dirt this comes out, you gotta think if the league has any backbone, homie's gotta sit down the year. And maybe you make Ballmer sit out a year. You can't be playing dirty pool like that. What do you all think? I mean, seriously. Some whackball stuff. It just is. Yeah, I do think I haven't done a complete deep dive on this yet, but I gotta think what I'm seeing. Man, I mean, that's a smelly diaper I can smell from across the street. Stay tuned. Yeah. Still cracks me up. I was talking about this the other day on Aftershocks. I still laughing all the pushback that KD is getting, for saying, hey, this team reminds me of, that Warrior team he joined. The one that, yeah. Pretty much solidified, Curry's status as being an all-time. Not that all-time, but that all-time. Man, okay, this one made me laugh. So you know how the Aussie League, it's a great development league. A lot of folks go over there. Obviously, it's taken them a minute to get into the 2020s because what's this? Sydney Kings, this guy Xavier Crooks. He gets suspended for testing positive for THC. Are we really suspending people for THC, Australia? Now, you doing some Brandon Clark kind of stuff, fine. But smoking the kind, the KGB, the Killer Green Bud. Come on, man. We're sitting people down for smoking the devil's lettuce. Say it ain't so. But apparently it is in Australia. Okay. Yeah. Let's go talk about the Queens now, shall we? I got something to say at a closer look, but let's just go through quickly. Kelsey Plum knew she was going to be on the move. She's now with the Mercury. That's all about the future there. Obviously, the Lynx Fever, big game. Sophie Circus continues. And then, the Aces smoked the dream. Angel Reese with one of the most ridiculous layups you'll ever see. Just, I was trying to explain it. It's like, yeah, she's got talent, but her basketball skills, actual basketball skills, are just so bad. I mean, these are some of the worst looking layups I've ever seen. You just happen to be big and somewhat athletic, but you definitely ain't coordinated. I mean, you rival me as far as being uncoordinated, but I've got a disability, which explains what my coordination issues. What's your problem, Angel? We'll get more on Angel a little bit later. Cleveland Sirens. That's going to be the team in Cleveland, the Sirens. Yeah. A lot to say about that nickname, huh? We could be here for a while, but we won't be. Right? The Angels. Jeez, the Angel. The Fever Aces game. We had we had two big games that could qualify for games of the year. Obviously, what went down with the Lynx Fever Classic, lot the takeaway there, which we broke down aftershocks, and then the Fever and the Aces played, where they were out, they had like a 15-point lead, and Jackie Young by herself, led like a 17-0 run. People all over Stephanie White for not calling a timeout, blah, 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 blah. And anyhow, Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell threw their wallets into the Indiana River, or whatever river runs through Indiana. Just said, and what's it? Chelsea Gray hit two buzzer beaters, one in regulation, and then hit a three after Caitlin Clark tried to go one-on-one with Aja Wilson. Jeez. Problem is, this great basketball, with all the optics away from the court. And that's what's really crazy. And we're going to have to, like I said, we're going to save this for a closer look. I just wanted to, kind of talk about some of the stuff that's actually on the court. It's like Rachel Demita, the lovely Rachel Demita. Check out her content. She's one of the, because she's not a simp like all these dudes that love Caitlin Clark, you actually get some really good, insightful details. So I don't mind giving her a shout out as far as checking her podcast out. She's flummoxed at all this nonsense because she's right. The WNBA has become the everything but basketball league. But we've been telling you that for how long? All right. In fact, that's a perfect segue. When we come back, we will do a closer look. As always, like and subscribe to FTI and FX's media channel. We could always use the engagement. It is a nice Saturday afternoon up here on the hill where Eagle's Nest 2 is. But definitely like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be back momentarily with some more Foxtrotting in the Foxhole. Hey, how y'all doing? Be wet my whistle here. So, Indiana is up by 15.
The Fever.
Which, they were playing a bad team. 12-19 Chicago. The Fever, at least you give them this. They beat the teams that were supposed to, not so much the teams that are good. So a lot to unpack here with the WNBA. We keep saying they're not. We're gonna hopefully get to move away from it. But I'll give you this: it is such a psychotic league. It keeps in frame, like Rachel DeMita said. It's the everything but basketball league. Now you got people like Enes Kanter saying, "Well, hell, you can't. You all keep wanting, trans, and you don't want to defend, biological men and all that kind of stuff." Well, hey, I'm gonna declare myself eligible for the WNBA draft. You got that Joanna man over there in France. See, this is what happens when you don't have adults in the room, and you let all this shenanigans. Where it's like, if you're going to give me an opportunity to, like, push the envelope, I'm going to. And, hopefully the league, right, they grab some brass balls, and click them together and say, enough of this nonsense. It's unfortunately that things have gotten politicized like this, where you have to draw a line in the sand. As otherwise, this is going to become one of the biggest freak shows on the planet. It already is. What the hell am I talking about? Shit. It already is. But this is a level I'm like, wow. I mean, it makes your head freaking explode when you think about how silly this has freaking become. I mean, I know Enes Kanter, he's just, he's out there to rock the apple cart. We totally get this, and from the show, Alec Ford chiming in right now saying the Fever can't play a game without any drama. It's true. It's just another nut. What have we got here? Oh wow. Yeah. That's a good one. I didn't even realize they were related. It makes sense. I'll have to unpack that later, but I don't want to lose my track of thought. So, with all this stuff going on, it's kind of good for Caitlin and Sophie that it's become bigger than them. Because this original post was really, are Caitlin and Sophie worth the trouble? That's been in an op-ed in many places this past week. And I thought at some point it was a valid question until all this madness took over. Because, I said the other day, when it comes to Caitlin, you cannot, it's hard not to have empathy for her, where she is the center of all of this madness. Right? So, yeah, it's... It has gotten so far beyond that. And so silly. Now, I get that certain people, have certain agendas. Totally get all of that nonsense. And where that may lead them. I'm just kind of making sure that everything is working here because I'm seeing some stuff in my back monitor. But anyway, not to lose my train of thought. But yeah, there is so much nuttiness that goes on with this particular league. And it's unfortunate that every stereotype, chauvinist, misogynist person can have, they're just like, you want to see, your stereotype? Watch this. I mean, this is like batshit crazy on steroids when it comes to this friggin' league. All right. Let me move on from that. I want to talk about Pochettino, the second act. Now, we had a minute to let him taking the job through 2030 in spite of folks thinking he's not going to last that long. But what do we really expect in the next act when it comes from Mauricio? And I've been thinking about this, since I kind of first mentioned that he probably would be staying on. Well, one, I would like to see this golden generation get a little more toughness, a little more thick skinned. That's one. I kind of feel that kind of soft. I mean, there's a lot of softness in that sport anyhow, but we're really soft. And, right? That grittiness that you see, from these elite countries, that we're not even in the same constellation when it comes to that. I want to see if he can instill that. I also want to see, we've been supposedly building on all this talent. You keep seeing, these kids like the Sullivan kid, they come in to MLS when they're 15 or 16. Gotta think our pool of talent has to be getting better with what we're developing and what we have in our academies and what we have in our colleges. But instead of the same old song and dance, let's infuse some new blood here. That whole grittiness. Maybe some of these people we've been carrying along, maybe they are too soft. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that would be it. I would also, I guess you get 1 and 2 going and actually see a genuine product that fans can really care about. The point is, if you put something out there where we're legit, we've seen in the World Cup window. It shouldn't have to be in the World Cup window where people have fever for this team. And this is, I think those are the kind of things we kind of want to see as far as Poach, the next iteration is concerned. You all tell me what you think, right? Drop me a line, all that kind of stuff, ftinfx@gmail.com, or call the hotline and leave a message. We'd love to hear what your take is, what you want to see in the next iteration of the United States men's national team. 541-525-0896, y'all. All right. When we return, we will do the NFL report and some TMCA time to get you out of here for episode, 326? Okay, we'll be back momentarily. Not sure what's going on here. Oh, we know what's going on. Yee. All right, all right, all right. We are almost at the finish line. So let's get going here real quick here with the NFL report, y'all. Football returns, as I said earlier, we got the Hall of Fame enshrinement that went today. The Lukes and Roger Craigs and who I'm trying to remember here. Obviously, Larry Johnson. Not Larry Johnson. Larry Fitzgerald, jeez. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the trims of those so I can actually find out the good points without actually having to sit through a whole enshrinement ceremony because I'm just so over it. Hate to say it, but it's true. That the game was more interesting than a lot of you people who poop on it. We got to see Carson Beck. What was he, like 15 of 19, I thought? Sure, it's vanilla coverages, but, as I say, these guys come in here and with a little confidence. Like with Dak, well, he's against fourth and fifth stringers. Okay, he's doing what he's supposed to do. That's why you drafted him. So good there. A little drama at the end with the Panthers winning, I think, at the very end, and everybody being kind of excited. Right? The plane's landed as far as football is concerned. That's always a good thing. You negative Nellies out there. Oh, what are they? I was watching the Coach JB show. or I think Coach JB and this people that were on Whitlock, and they were just talking about, I can't watch it because any game where there's not an outcome and nobody cares. STFU. Most folks are competing for a job. You may look at it as like the game doesn't matter, but trust me, folks trying to make a roster, if you are so thick-headed that you can't see that part of why exhibition season kind of matters, and if you are looking through the magnifying glass, there are plenty of things to watch. They are. Yeah, because it doesn't count. Now, it might be for the more hardcore geeky types as far as that's concerned, but my goodness, folks. Once again, don't watch it. And you don't have to comment on YouTube or on X about how this is so worthless and how it used to matter and how we used to play the college all-stars. Once again, the whole cheese wax stuff. Way back in the day. All right, man. Yeah, I'm kind of interested about this whole thing with Baker smoking his own crop, betting on himself. Still finishing up the Buccaneers documentary. I'm just like, man, they're gonna have to come up with another chapter with this whole thing with Baker and how this thing all blows up in the post Brady years. That's Amazon. Y'all need to get them to do the epilogue. Okay. Movement. A lot of folks getting paid, among them Mr. Robinson down in Atlanta and Zay Flowers. The big news there is Jahmyr Gibbs, who was holding in. He getting the big bag of cash. He's the Lions have made him the highest paid running back in NFL history, subject to change, but right now, he holding the belt. So good for him in that regard. Mr. Diggs has landed in Washington, so no more talk about Brandon Ayuk. Like I said, Commanders hire somebody as far as beef up the security, because I have a feeling that guy's going to come up with his rocker and try to harm somebody. But I think that's a really good pickup as far as putting him aside Terry McLaurin. You got a nice 1A and 1B there. No excuses, JD5. You got the weapons. And another inseparable fan base. You got your second target, so STFU. Aaron Donald continues to tease us. Am I coming back? Or am I just here titillating you guys? He's coming back. Even though Coach JB seems to think the longer he's titillating us, the more he's realizing, do I really want to go through this grind? I already made my bones. I'm going to the Hall of Fame, and I'm already kind of known as one of the greatest, D linemen ever. But I know the opportunity to play with Myles Garrett. But once again, we're still at the titillation stage. Okay. Teasing us. This isn't going to make people too happy, especially after all the belly aching coming out of the World Cup. Trevor said, why don't we go to grass fields, man? I do it for the World Cup, but you won't do it for us. Well, the new facility, the barn that the Browns are building, that's going to be turf, not grass. Yeah, think about it getting cold in Cleveland late in the year might have something to do with that. I don't know, man. I just say, y'all quit being cheap. Figure out what the folks like in Madrid are doing and other places. Where we are now in climate control, you still should be able to keep grass. Even in places where it's not that. It's not that hospitable, after Halloween. That said, yeah. But you don't want to because you'd have to spend the money, the research, and the upkeep. We get it. But people going to keep complaining. Okay. Let's do a quick crystal ball here. We'll go crystal ball 1 first with the Colts. Okay, so Danny Dimes returns from his bad injury. You remember last year, homegirl with the headset and everybody rolling. What were they like? 7-1, 8-1. Everybody thinking it's a new day in Indy. Well, I'm looking at my crystal ball, and I'm telling you, this is a team I say doesn't take a massive step back, but is disappointing. Where I see this easily as a 7-10 or 8-9 team in that weird chicken and dumplings division. I mean, I do. Yeah, this is that. Okay, I could be wrong, and one of these teams really has a bust out, which if it's gonna be, I think it's the Jaguars. But I see the Texans and Colts not being all that. I think the Colts and just looking at that team, just re-sign Taylor, gave him some money, and do the receiver a big bag of cash. I think y'all are gonna be sitting there thinking this was last year, and it ain't. You want it one way, but as Marlo said, this is the other way. That's just how I'm seeing it. If I'm wrong, I'll come out in a minute. Crystal ball number 2. Let's go to Las Vegas and look at that crystal ball. Especially after, Kirk Cousins and Max Crosby doing a little shoving, kissing, and getting each other's faces. Good to see a little spunk in the Raiders camp. The crystal ball is really curious about this one. In that really tough ass division with the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos. Yeah, this is probably a 6 to 8 win team. I can see that. 8 might be pushing it. 6 might be more realistic. But I do think this is a team it's on the upskill. I just think that you're playing such a tough division, and you still need, like with my Commanders, you still need to sweep out a lot of bad woo-woo. So, yeah, I just think this is a 6 to 8 win team at best right now. And for the Raider Nation, hopefully I'm wrong there. All right. We have finally reached that point. The trucks in the foundry are here. And because it's been smoky, this is an extra smoky batch of the smelliest varieties that come in the stainless steel bowls, complimentary regular and XL sizes that we give out every week at this time for those whose deeds during the week have earned that distinction, or as we like to say, them being who they be, inspired by the Tommy Katie years and The Wire. You know the episode, you know where we get the stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties. It's TMCA time in the Foxhole. That's right. That time that's in honor of 2 of the biggest turds I ever worked for. You know who you are, and I hope you're not having a good day. Both of you. Okay. Complimentaries all around the room in a 3-strip. 3 XLs for the Hall of Shame. For the adults in the room still dragging their feet as we need to bring college sports, bring some order to it. Y'all still playing tiddlywinks instead of stepping up and being adults and getting something done and putting some guardrails around this bee. Shame on all of you. I'm going to give an XL to columnists. Sometimes it used to be part of the ESPN, journalists. I turned talking head in that kind of first wave. A little woke for my taste. But this rant that Howard Bryant went on, kind of on the whole Caitlin Sophie thing. It's like, man, we don't need more of this nonsense from you and the Jamel Hills and all that kind of stuff. Don't you got other race baiting, hustling nonsense as opposed to throw your nose into it and really kind of show how much you hate Caitlin and Sophie for bringing more popularity to the league, whether it's right or not? Wow. It's just really obnoxious. Okay. I'm going to give... This is a 5 spot. What we call a 5 strip. 5 XLs. And I don't know how I'm going to distribute these because I got to give the Fever. I got to give Chelsea Gray of the Las Vegas Aces. Anybody involved in this silly nonsense, because I was going to save this for a closer look, but I'm just going to include it now. The guys who apparently didn't say anything offensive that Jackie Young wanted removed. Was it Jackie Young or was it Chelsea Gray? One of them removed. And, everybody tried to sign off and like, yeah, he's being obnoxious. And it turns out they weren't being, but we've created such a safe space. Well, like I said, these psychos, forget about the queens on the court, the psychos of the court. And the guys, they figured it out that he didn't cross the line, but he said, F this noise. I don't want to have to, I paid courtside for this kind of nonsense. Shame on, yeah. Every time somebody's out of line at these WNBA games, have a thick skin. You're getting the big bag. You can't have such a safe space. This is like complete bullshit. Pardon my language. Just complete bullshit what we're seeing here with how the fans who pay good money, if you're spitting in those seats, wow. Yeah. I gotta give complimentaries and 3 more XLs for the Hall of Shame for the Montreal supporters being racist towards Revs to a New England player. Was it Turgeman? Come on, folks. Stop with the racist BS. Grow the F up. Jeez. Yeah, I gotta give an XL out to, now that the video footage is all over the place, the Oregon coordinator, his DUI, where, yeah, he tried to say he was Hassan Jackson, and then tried to say he was the Cal coach. Come on, bro. There's only so many bros in Eugene. And you work for the university. Yeah, that's probably not going to work for you. Wow. I got to give a regular. I'll give him a compliment. He doesn't deserve harsh because I like Sean King. But not knowing, he was on, was it Coach JB's show, and he doesn't know that that the NWSL existed. How are you somebody covering sports and you don't know that the NWSL exists? I mean, maybe you were being facetious, but it really seemed like he did not know that the NWSL existed, which is, like I said, that's crazy to me. Oh man, where else are we going here as we're winding this thing down? Okay, this is a 5 strip. This goes to Mount Vernon, New York. This is New York Deputy Commissioner Jennifer Lacker for getting busted. Now get what you get busted for. She's the police commissioner, and she's the driver as her son's doing a drive-by. Her and her husband both. You can't make this shit up in 9 lifetimes, pardon my language. You're the police commissioner, and you're the wheelman as your son's doing a drive-by. Yeah, that's definitely worth 5 XLs. I'm going to give 3 XLs to Angel Reese, who over time has collected quite a few. Out there playing victim again, making up a whole narrative about Black Barbies not existing when she was a kid, even though they've been around since like 1968. Once again, the psychos on the court, the most unlikable bunch you will find in all of the sports. And Angel Reese, especially that layup she had, the worst shots in the history of basketball. My God. Lastly, how about Lewis Hamilton? Yeah, that Lewis Hamilton. In his chummy wummy pictures with Kim Kardashian. Come on, bro. With everybody who's been ran up in that, this is the best you can do with all the honey bears of this planet. Now, I know she's got a lot of money, but so do you. Come on, man. I mean, I'm only going to give you like a regular. You don't, it's not like Kim Kardashian's the scourge of the earth, but come on, man. All right, folks. We have reached the finish line. As always, thanks for putting up with the shenanigans in the Foxhole. We really appreciate it. As always, you know the drill. You know how we do up in here. Like, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff. Stay safe and sane. Avoid the bracelets at all cost. Eat good food. Drink with the people that matter this weekend. Take in some good MLS. Go to a show. I know I'm going to one tonight. We'll see you probably, I'm going to say Tuesday, but it seems like Wednesday. But hopefully more so Tuesday this week for Aftershocks. Always keep an eye out for trimmers that may drop at any moment. All right, keep it real, keep it clean, keep it tight. We will see you when we see you. Peace, y'all.